Welcome back to Missing. I am Tim here today with Lance. Lance, how are you today?
I'm doing very well today, Tim. Thank you for asking. I hope all the listeners are doing very well also. I love saying this. I love saying that we have return guests on when there's news about their missing or the unsolved tragedy that's happened in their lives, the missing person or someone who might be murdered and they haven't had any justice yet. And that is the case today with our guest. We have a bit of a recap, and we get a lot of that passion, especially towards the end of this conversation. We get a lot of that family passion and that drive to ensure that this isn't going to carry out through further generations in this particular family. But Tim, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty well over here, Lance. Thanks for asking. And yeah, just a few weeks ago, we re-aired our initial interview with Karlee Bodine about her mother's unsolved murder. And Karen Bodine was found on January 22nd, 2007 on Littlerock Road in Rochester, Washington, and that's Washington State. And our guest, Karlee, was a teenager at the time. She's got two younger siblings as well. And really, they are all fighting for justice, and they are out there pretty actively advocating for their mom's case. There was a honk and wave that they did just back in January. They've put up billboards. They've really gone through most of the things you can do when advocating for your loved one's murder, unsolved murder. And now they're keeping in touch with the authorities, and it really sounds like there's a chance for justice in this case, but we need that other push from authorities.
And we do mention this in the conversation. This is one of the great examples of how CrimeCon, the organization, has helped out in cases like this, in these family stories. This was the first crowd solve that CrimeCon had done, and it really propelled all of this information into a new stratosphere. Like, this wouldn't have happened without CrimeCon, and that's why CrimeCon does what it does. And this crowd solve concept, like you said, Tim, you want that extra push. Everybody wants the extra push. That's one of the huge stepping stones to that extra push. It brings together family, law enforcement, and civilians who are interested in trying to put pieces together that perhaps those other two elements haven't seen yet.
Yeah, absolutely. That crowdsolve event is a really cool thing that they do, and definitely excited to hear what you think of this conversation with Karlee Bodine. Let us know on Spotify or on YouTube. You can comment there. And if you want more information on Karen Bodine's unsolved murder, you can go to KarenBodine.com. You can also search for justiceformymom.KarenBodine on Facebook, and there's a pretty active Facebook group there.
All right, so hey, follow us on social. That's Missing CSM, and we're going to break real quick for a commercial, and we'll be right back with Karlee Bodine.
Karlee Bodine, welcome back to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm pretty well. How are you guys?
We're doing very well. It's always a mixed bag of emotions when we have people come back on the show. We welcome you back, and we enjoy having you on and speaking with you. But we never have people come back on. Well, for the most part, it's always about something that's been a tragic event in their life. And that's no different for you. But can you introduce yourself to the listeners and maybe tell them a little bit about what's going on?
My name is Karlee Bodine. Karen Bodine was my mom. I'm the oldest out of her 3 kids. She was unfortunately murdered 18 years ago, and it's unsolved, and my family continues to fight for justice for her.
Can you talk about how you found out that that your mom was murdered?
Yeah, it was a pretty tragic day. I was living with my Nana at the time, my dad's mother, and my 2 siblings were with grandparents, my mom's mother. It was before cell phones, and I was at a boyfriend's house. I guess my mom had called me that night for a ride, but I wasn't home to get the phone call. And my Nana knocks on the door, and she says, "Karlee, you need to come home." And then she told me what happened, and I remember it was raining, and I fell in the mud, and I was just so upset. And with my siblings, when they came to my grandparents' house to tell my siblings too, I believe my brother was watching it on the news.
So you were 18 years old at the time that this happened?
Yeah, I was a senior in high school. My sister was a freshman. And I believe my brother was in the 6th grade. I was at my Nana's at the time at a boyfriend's house, and my mom had called me for a ride home, and I missed that call. And then when my grandma came, my Nana came to tell me, some bad news had happened, and I needed to come home. And she told me what happened, and I fell in the mud, and it was really sad and rainy, and that stuck in my brain. My siblings were at home with their grandparents, and I believe my brother was actually watching the news on TV when the police officer came up and rang the doorbell to notify our family.
Wow, that's incredibly tragic. And what was the early days like?
Yeah, so that's the other unfortunate thing is when it first got reported, she got reported as a homeless prostitute, which no offense to anyone that is homeless or anything like that, but that was not her. She had a home, she had a place, she happened to be staying at a friend's house, but she still had a stable place to stay. And so they misreported originally, and that at that time they victim shamed her, and it really made the public and the police not really do their jobs properly.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
The sheriff at the time, bad oversight. Like, there's reports that when she was found, her head was resting on a car seat. Not like a baby car seat, but like, in a car. They didn't even collect the car seat for evidence.
How was your family informed of this? Is this all information that you're getting from the media?
They didn't talk to us very much at all until CrimeCon, when we got a copy of all the police reports and stuff.
Just another amazing reason to support CrimeCon. So, what year did you get that information from CrimeCon?
I think that was 2019.
2019.
And Detective Hamilton literally had to bring the case up from the basement and blow the dust off the case.
And that was one of CrimeCon's CrowdSolve events.
It was the original CrowdSolve event. Yep,
the
first
original one. Okay, so that's kind of a situation where there's a whole crowd of people in the audience, and they offer suggestions on what they think happened based on the evidence that's presented there. Is that right?
Yeah. It's like, an American armchair detective. Like, anyone can help and be a part. And we did get a lot of new points of view and perspectives. But the biggest thing CrimeCon CrowdSolve really did for our family is bring awareness. Like, it showed that the case still, a lot of people, it wasn't in the news a lot. So when it was brought up, they're like, oh, I thought that was solved. No, it's just not talked about. So CrimeCon, the main thing they did is really bring awareness to the case, and gave me the confidence to be like, I needed to speak up more.
Good. Was your mom missing at all for any period of time?
No, I don't think so. They found her, and they didn't know who she was at first. It took a minute to identify her. But there was a welfare check done not too long before she was murdered. It was the middle of January. It's in Washington. It's pretty cold. And a concerned citizen saw her just walking down the street, but not in like skimpy clothing, but not appropriate warm clothing for that time. And so a police officer did come and check on her. And she said, no, I'm fine. It's okay. And he went on his way. He didn't offer her any shelter information or anything like this. And so the police officer ended up identifying her, I believe, because of that incident.
The same police officer that you just mentioned was the one that identified her. Okay. Can you take us back to you growing up? Can you fill us in on what your mom was like in those 18 years?
My mom was awesome. I mean, everyone says that about their mom, but I feel like my mom was a really special person. She had me when she was a little young. She was 19. And so I was not only her first child, but I was like her best friend too. We were always really close. one memory I kind of forgot about until recently is in Washington. We have like wild, tiny, tiny little strawberries, like as big as your fingernail, all over in the fields. And when we were young, my mom would suntan, probably out with Crisco and everything. And we would find strawberries and feed each other's little strawberries.
Oh, that's cute. How did your siblings, how did you and your siblings react to this? I know this must have been an incredibly difficult time in your lives, especially right at first.
It was really difficult. I think everyone kind of took it a different way. I was pretty angry. I think my siblings were more in shock and they were a little more withdrawn. My grandparents were in disbelief. You know, one minute she was there and then the next she's not. It's torn our family apart. It really has. But in other ways, it's made us closer together too.
Do you mind giving us an example of that? Of both of those, how it's torn your family apart and how it's brought you even closer?
We've all kind of separated. Like my sister and brother were up in Seattle for a while. They didn't even want to be in Olympia or anything. And we all didn't talk very much for a while. We just kind of were in our own pain. And then after CrimeCon, we started doing more podcasts and news articles and stuff like that. And it gave us a chance to not just remember the bad, but tell more stories and stuff too. And that's been really therapeutic and helpful for the family to rehumanize my mom, Karen Bodine, and make people realize she's not just a victim, she's a person too.
And you said earlier, just to keep on the family topic, you said that your family is making strides and taking steps to keep your mom's name out there and keep the public awareness going. When did you guys come together to decide that? Or was that like right around the CrimeCon time period?
It was about the CrimeCon era. That really gave us the confidence and the wherewithal to be like, hey, we can talk about this and people will listen. You have to understand that I've called the Olympia newspaper for years wanting to do a story and they would ignore us and not do it. And then when they heard about CrimeCon, they wanted to do a story. It's like, well, this is really frustrating, but can you be here in 5 minutes?
That's what they said?
Mm-hmm.
That's strange. Yeah. Well, at least podcasts, you know, there will always be a place for you and your family to speak on true crime podcasts, I think. I know the mainstream media, they struggle for the airtime, I think, and it is frustrating. But also, like, their interviews are short. You know, that's why I think what podcasts do is so beneficial, because we can have a conversation for 45 minutes, an hour without a problem.
Like I said, like it's people like you that's been essential in humanizing my mother, you know. So I'm so grateful for you guys and this opportunity.
Good. Well, thanks. We're happy to have you anytime.
So you also said something about you didn't have the confidence to talk about this before the CrimeCon event. How does that feel, like, to gain the confidence?
It feels really good. I like to advocate not just for my own case, but for all the local missing and homicides around this area. And I've had families message me and they're like, you're so involved. Like, how can you help me? And it's like, yes, I would love to. If I can help you have this much less pain than we have, I would love to help.
So when you get contacted by somebody like that and you say that's, you know, I'd love to help, do you have something now that you kind of have in your head, or maybe it's actual, like, on paper, like a template that you follow when you are working with somebody else or working with someone else's family?
Yeah, I've done it, you know, a few times now. So there's certain questions you ask, like, how much do you want to be involved? It is a lot of work. Like, do you want to do honking waves? Do you want to do vigils? Do you just want more awareness? Like, tell me what I can do to show you how I can help you. You know, it's really helpful being able to help these other families too, because we're all in pain. It's a club that nobody wants to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. And how is your journey of advocating for the case going?
I think it's a little slow at times, but that's just the nature of the beast. I think overall it's going really well. There's actually a cold case unit in Olympia, Washington now. There was not before. So that's an amazing stride. It's still understaffed and it needs some work, but it's better than what we had before.
And this is clearly a result of the work that you're doing right now, right?
Yes, I believe it's from public pressure on the sheriff's office, because I hold them accountable at the vigils. I ask them hard questions, and he has to answer to the public. He's promised to meet me every quarter. He's been pretty good about that, but recently he's been shirking me off. We're supposed to have a meeting, and it hasn't gone through. This is the sheriff, Derek Sanders. Yeah.
Yeah, I see some photos here from a vigil that you held earlier this year, and police were present there too.
Yeah.
That's encouraging. So who is your contact then? It's the sheriff?
The sheriff and Wyatt Blankenship, and there's a detective named Opplinger, which I don't want to say anything bad about him. I hope he's doing his job. You know, I'm paying my taxpayer dollars for him to be working, but he was also one of the original detectives on the case too. So I have my doubts, and I hope he's actually following through with everything. That's the best I can say. Is I hope they're doing their jobs. I don't want to speak ill, but I do have my doubts for very valid reasons.
What's some of those? Is it just like the lack of communication, or?
It's a lack of communication. It's like, why didn't you collect the car seat originally? Like, that's evidence. The sheriff was telling me for a while that everything has been tested. There's no DNA that hasn't. I brought up to him that there's some things that haven't been tested, and he realized I was right, and now we're getting some progress. We're getting some more things tested and stuff, but it's just, I have to push and poke and prod like until an answer, and it's really frustrating.
What were some of the things that hadn't been tested?
That I can't really talk about much because it's in the process right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were they like obvious things though?
Kind of, yeah.
You'd think like during a police investigation of a murder, even like the most insignificant things would be tested.
Yep. And they were not.
Yeah, it is kind of hard to believe that there was no useful DNA found, right? I mean, oftentimes we deal with missing persons cases, and that would make some sense that there's no DNA if there's no body found, but your mom was found. Again, very hard to believe that the killer's DNA was not present at the scene anywhere.
She was found, and she was found pretty quickly, too.
Yeah.
So there should have been a lot. There was a small sample of mixed DNA originally, and we've tested it a few times through the years with like Othram, which is a great company, and a few other things. And unfortunately, the sample is so small and so degraded that we have to be careful what tests we do and don't do, because you could use up everything and then there's nothing for a trial. So that's been a really frustrating aspect. You see things on TV like Law and Order or CSI, and you think that's how a lab works. It's not.
Right. Yeah, it takes a long time. And you mentioned Othram Labs. They're definitely one of the best out there. So they're testing new items in the hopes to find more DNA. So I guess the DNA or the combined DNA that they had found before didn't point in any direction.
No.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program.
What happens at these meetings that you have quarterly?
We talk about the progress of the case, what resources are being used, what technology that we can get for that department. They have been talking about machines to quicker test DNA and all this stuff that's been promised. And now he's saying that's another year out. We do have the cold case unit, but a lot of them are volunteers. And there was some drama and conflict in the beginning of this task force, but I think they're working things out. They've showed up to the vigils and stuff so that, I mean, I've invited every administration, the old sheriffs and stuff too, and no one showed up until Derek Sanders.
Do you think any of the people that you work with, any of the investigators would come on a show like this to talk about it?
I know Mickey Hamilton, the old detective, was really into all that. I would hope they would. It doesn't hurt to ask.
Have there been any helpful tips or leads to your knowledge, I guess, dating back to the early days and even, anything current?
I believe right now they are working on re-interviewing everyone. Like the original interviews, I believe they're re-interviewing them to see if there's any discrepancies or differences. There is kind of a lead.
Do you feel good about the lead?
I think that it's a really good place to start. I have a lot of hope that it will bring more answers.
Well, that's good to hear. Do you recall any suspicious people hanging out with your mom?
Her boyfriend at the time, Kevin Hastings, was just kind of a loser. There's the person's house she was staying at named Jim Hunt. He's quite a suspicious character too. No one is a suspect legally in this case whatsoever. There's persons of interest, but that is different than a suspect.
What was your last interaction with your mom?
I know she called me pretty regularly, so it must have been a phone call. I also remember she always had cats. Not too long before she passed, she gave me a little kitten, and I brought it home without asking my grandparents, of course. And right after she was murdered, my family went out to the site. They found some kittens. On her gravestone, there's kittens. There's a brand new cross out at the site that got donated. It's really beautiful. There's carnations and kittens on there.
Did you just say that there's a new cross that was donated?
Yeah, it's wrought iron. It was welded. It's beautiful. A gentleman and his wife private messaged me, and they're like, "Hey, I work in the industry. I would like to donate one if that's okay with you." And I was like, "Oh, sure, of course." And I was just amazed at the offer, and the finished product was more beautiful than I can ever imagine. It's a really amazing tribute.
That's so nice. How cool of them.
Yeah.
And it's permanent in that location?
Yes, it's cemented in.
Oh, that's great.
Yep.
And is that where you do vigils and honkin' waves?
Yeah, I usually do it at that site. I want to do another honkin' wave here soon, but maybe in Tumwater, because she was found in Rochester, but we're more from Tumwater, so I feel like we'd get a really good reaction from that area.
And how big is this area? Like, how big is Olympia?
It's smaller. I know that. There's like Olympia, Tumwater, Lacey that are all kind of grouped together. And there's like Rochester or Centralia, Chehalis, which is not very far from, they're really close together. It's smaller towns, like way smaller than Seattle or anything like that.
And is there like really good communities? Does word travel about this pretty easily among these communities?
Yes. So I'm actually working at a local gas station that just opened up right now. And when we first started, there's a few people that saw my name and they're like, "Oh, that's Karen Bodine's daughter." Like, people knew immediately. And that's really reassuring. And it shows that my efforts have paid off to bring more awareness.
That's great to hear. Yeah, it does seem like these towns are small. Rochester's like 6,000 people population. Olympia's only 55,000. So yeah, these are pretty smaller towns. So that's good that word travels. I'm curious what the discovery of your mom being murdered, what that did to the area. Were people afraid that there was a killer on the loose?
I think a little bit, yeah. Especially, it's not just my mom. There's a lot. I think it's like 32 unsolved and missing people just in Thurston County alone since like the 80s. And that's a lot.
That is a lot. Is it all matching a certain type? Like do they all resemble your mom? Do they all fit a certain type?
No, that's the crazy part. There's men, women, children that have gone missing or murdered, but what they all have in common is it's a smaller area. There's not a lot of camera surveillance or even traffic or people going by sometimes. It's more country. So sometimes stuff doesn't get noticed right away.
Right. So somebody could be missing for a few days, and I guess the life there has just become such that families probably don't think that it's that much of a mystery if someone's not seen for a couple of days. So whatever's happened already has like a few days advancement on any sort of investigation that's going to be done, whether it's official or whether it's from the family. But that wasn't the case with your mom. Like, she was found pretty shortly after the act had occurred.
Luckily, yes. They believe it happened like the night before or even early morning hours of that same day. And that's also the crazy part too, is where she was found. There was other places along that area that literally are water or wooded or anything where she could have been concealed for a while, and she wasn't. She was laid out right where passersby on the road could see her and stuff. I feel like whoever did this has some kind of remorse or something because they wanted her to be found quickly, I feel like.
Interesting. Do you think her killer knew her?
I personally think so, yeah. And I don't know if it's killer or killers.
Right. And you said that they think that this occurred the night before. What was she doing the night before?
So, like I said, there's no suspects or anything, but it is a known fact that she was at Jim Hunt's house mere hours before she was found murdered. I'm not saying he's guilty, because I can't say that, but I'm saying he knows something and he needs to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Has he been interviewed by the press?
No, he has not, and he's moved out of state.
Does he speak with investigators, or is he one of the folks that they're planning to re-interview?
I'm not sure if they've re-interviewed him yet. They kind of keep those things kind of close to the chest, but I know he's on the list to be interviewed.
And do you recall his story years ago? Like what he said about where he was, I guess?
He said he was out chopping wood with his dad or something like that.
Okay.
Whereas there's conflicting reports saying that he might not have been doing that, but that's what he said he was doing, was out cutting wood with his dad when all this transpired.
Have you or any of your family members spoken with him or made an attempt to speak with him?
Oh, yes. When he was local, I would deliver the newspaper with the article on it, or bring flowers to the house, or tape the flyer of Mom's case onto the house. One time I saw Kevin Hastings, my mom's boyfriend at the time, at the house. They were hanging out. So I know they're still friends. I know they still talk. I try to remind all of them as much as I can without being harassment.
And you said that he doesn't live in the state anymore. Do you know where he lives, like, specifically?
Yeah, I do. I'm a dog with a bone, so.
What about this Kevin Hastings guy? Is he still local?
I'm not sure on that. I saw him in town a few years ago. I don't know if he was just in town visiting him, but he's, semi-local. He's still around the area. I don't know, like, his address or anything like that. And in the original investigation, they said Kevin, the boyfriend, was truly distraught when they told him. So maybe he really was. Maybe he truly didn't know anything.
Do you recall if he had an alibi for that time or that night?
So a few days prior, Kevin and my mom had gotten into a pretty bad fight, and he's the owner of the house, and she was staying with him. So when the cops did get called, they said, hey, you just need to go away for a while, like, calm down, all that stuff. And that's when she went to a mutual friend's, Jim Hunt's house. And then 2 or 3 days later, she was found dead.
So the police told her that she needed to remove herself and find a place to calm down.
Yep.
Okay. How far away was Jim Hunt's place from where she was told to leave?
Like within walking distance, like 1 to 3 miles or something like that.
Okay. And do you remember having any phone call with her during that period?
I remember that night, the night she died, I was not home and she had called me for a ride. I remember that.
And how well did you know Jim Hunt before your mom was friends with him?
Not really. I mean, Jim Hunt and Kevin Hastings were in like a garage band together. And so my mom would call me sometimes and she's like, they're at band practice and it's boring. That's why I'm calling you. So I knew they were friends. Like I knew they hung out. But I never like met him in person or anything.
What kind of music did they play?
I think they just kind of hung out and did some garage music. It was nothing super serious or anything like that. They were usually doing other activities.
Were there any drug use activities going on between the two of them?
Yeah, there were. I guess I would call it a flop house. Like, that's where all the partying happened and everyone was not sober. And it was a pretty well-known establishment.
Was it a place that police were often called to? Was there a lot of trouble there?
I do believe there was a lot of police activity and they were just aware of the people around the house. It was a pretty well-known spot to local police.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program. Well, I see you've got a pretty good Facebook page here, justiceformymom.Karen Bodine. And you've got several thousand followers here. Do you get tips and leads through the Facebook page?
We do, yes, quite often. And I'm sure I probably bug the police, but I don't care. I'm calling them and texting them and telling them every lead or every detail that I get. I feel like people can kind of hide behind the internet, and so they're more comfortable saying things. So we've gotten a lot of tips and stuff that we immediately pass along.
So what is next for you in advocating for the case and your mom?
I know that I have a few summer activities planned, like little honkin' waves and stuff like that. I'm always trying to do podcasts like this. I'm always writing the news. I'm really excited about this cold case unit. I really hope they do things. It's keep trucking forward. Even if we don't get answers, because that is a real possibility, just knowing that I tried the best I could makes me feel better.
And what do you think is going to be the thing that comes forward as far as like the best piece of evidence that'll lead to somebody?
My shirt, I don't know if you can see it. It says someone knows something, and that's the mantra. Like there's one interview, there's one person that is just not saying something yet, and that's going to break the case. I really believe that.
Then you must have a message for whoever this person is, and I'm curious if you want to deliver that message here.
Absolutely. To the person or persons that is responsible for this horrible tragedy, you're not slick. We're going to find you. You picked the wrong family.
I like that.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Is there anything else you'd like to say here today?
I would like to thank everyone for their time, and if you have a chance, go to Justice for Karen Bodine, my mother's unsolved homicide, and add us as a friend and follow us.
I want to add, and I hope everybody does go do that and support you wherever they can, support you and your family. But I want to add to like any message to people who might be responsible. Like Tim and I talk about these stories all the time, and it always like drives me crazy that people can release themselves of this guilt that they might have, and they don't do it. And I can't imagine the amount of guilt the individual or individuals involved with your mother's murder must be feeling.
It's got to be eating them alive.
It does.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I hope it's ruined this person's life, and it probably has, and I am not sorry about that.
No, nor should you be. someone coming forward and saying something not only will help you and your family, but it will help themselves too. And I mean, that has to be something that can, be weighing on somebody. I just think about like all the stupid mundane stuff in my life that I get worried about or have stress about, and nothing compares to that, so I can't even imagine.
And truly, my family's not out for vengeance. We want answers. We just want to know what happened to my poor mom.
Yeah. Yeah. And not only like taking someone's life, but you said earlier on towards the beginning of the conversation that it tore your family apart until you all came together. Like, you've not only taken someone's life, you're affecting the lives of the family members.
Generations.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of guilt.
Absolutely. You got me fired up now.
I'm fired up too.
Good. And I know you mentioned more honkin' waves and things like that. Do you have any dates for anything scheduled yet? If so, feel free to mention them here or send it to us.
Nothing's set in stone absolutely yet because I'm still working on the dates. But also, just on a little side note, because I do say I advocate for other families and everything, Matthew Anfeld, there was going to be a search today for more of his remains, but unfortunately it got canceled. That's another thing that's coming up too. Looking for Shane Barton and Matthew Anfeld's remains.
That's amazing. Can you give just a quick recap on those two individuals and their circumstances, just to fully inform the listeners?
Matthew Anfeld, I forget what year. It was a few years ago, not too long ago. He was missing from the Rochester area. He was last seen at a gas station and he just disappeared. And unfortunately, not too long ago, they found partial remains. They don't know if it's foul play or weather or anything. So the family still does not have answers, and they don't have everything yet. So we're still looking, and hopefully, that family can have a little bit of closure. But also, Shane Barton, I believe about a year ago, he just up and vanished. I mean, he had like a cup of iced coffee, and before the ice melted, he was just gone.
And where did that one occur?
That was Rochester area also.
Oh, okay, both in Rochester.
Yeah.
Jeez, well, that sounds quite mysterious. Gonna have to look into those.
Well, where can our listeners follow you?
That's the Justice for Karen Bodine, my mother's unsolved homicide, or you can call the sheriff's office too.
Do you have that number?
Great. 360-786-5500.
Oh, yep, there we go.
Perfect.
And I want to mention too, we're doing this on the 7th. My grandma's birthday is the 9th, in just a few days. We were all hoping that we would solve this before my grandma passed, but unfortunately she has. So it's going to be a tough time, but we're all going to get together and share memories of the family and look at pictures and just have much needed family time.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I hope all of that goes well, despite how difficult it'll be, but I'm sure you all will make the best of it.
Yep, that's what we're known for.
Well, Karlee, thank you so much for joining us here today. I really appreciate you joining us again, and we're just happy to share this information and your mom's story.
I'm hopefully looking forward to next time I'm on here, the case will be solved.
That'd be great.
Can't wait. Yeah.
Or at least one step closer, and we can keep pushing with you.
At least that, yes.